Welcome to Past, Present and Future, the Impacteers podcast, where we bring you insights from seasoned professionals across diverse industries. This is your go-to podcast destination for exploring career paths, industry transformations and future opportunities through the eyes of the experts. Today we welcome Mr. Anjan Manikonda, an esteemed expert in fraud risk management operations and collections management. With a BCom degree from Madras University, Mr. Manikonda has made significant contributions at Citibank, Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of Baroda, Yes Bank, and the Jana Small Finance Bank. He's known for implementing innovative processes like dynamic random sampling plan at Citibank, saving millions annually. His achievements include designing a successful merchant training process, centralizing fraud complaint management, and optimizing collections across 229 branches at the Jana Small Finance Bank. Currently, he consults on fraud risk management frameworks for global banks in developing a framework for Northern Arc Capital. Thank you, Mr. Anjan Manikonda, for taking time off to be here with us today. How does someone get the interest to sort of go into the banking world and get into that banking sector? Because that's a different ballgame altogether from compared to other.
People look at engineering and look at medical, look at dentistry and everything. There is a passion which is attached to it.
True.
So for me, I wanted to become a chartered accountant or a banker, learn more about the business and more about the finances and everything.
Right.
So I set my passion saying, let me go and explore into that world.
Okay.
So the journey started with a graduation towards the commerce graduation and everything.
Right.
And then explore various opportunities which are available in the finance sector. Finance sector is just not banking. Finance sector is very huge and wide.
It's vast. Yeah.
Vast. So I just said, let me set my course towards that because my appetite was on towards that.
Let's leave the qualifications for a second. As far as the skill sets are concerned, what in your view were some of the skill sets that helped you when you started off, and what has formed in your head as some of, these are the basic skill sets you need if you're going to enter this world?
The most important, the skill set which is required is that you need to have the ability to learn at any stage.
Right.
From anyone, from anywhere. If you have that particular skill set, then you can definitely go into the finance, because finance has got various things to understand. It is not about the problem, and it also depends upon what kind of goals which the institution is setting, whether it's for service, whether it's for profit, for employment. There are so many reasons in which many institutions are being framed. Okay. So you need to understand that first. Okay. Let's know, where am I going?
So what kind of qualifications do you think one would...
See, I am just a graduate. Right. Okay. So when I started my career, I started as with the graduation. But as you go about, okay, you need to learn a lot of skills in terms of, today if you look at the environment, you need to understand cyber security. Then you need to understand analytics first. Then you need to understand how to understand the risk assessment. So these are the things which are really essential, and there are various courses which tells you how you need to learn this and how you can perform and how you can understand that. So these are the basic things which I feel is required.
What challenges did you face earlier on in your career, and how did you overcome them?
When I entered, I entered into an MNC bank, and the culture was completely different. The approach was completely different, and the stalwarts around me were completely different. So I was just a graduate who stepped into the shoes of an MNC bank and standing next to the stalwarts who are professionals and everybody there. So what made me different was, I said to myself that if I have to achieve what they are today, there are three things which I want to understand. One, first work so that you will learn. Once you learn, you graduate yourself into a manager's shoes and see what kind of decision making you should do. Once you learn the art of decision making, then you can start leading it. So once you start leading the entire thing, then you can head for the head position so that you can integrate your unit or anything with other business vertical. So this is the primary thing which is important. For example, when I started my career, transaction processing, it used to take 3 hours. Okay, I was doing exceptionally well with the 3 hours. Why shouldn't I do it in 2 hours? That thought process came to me. So then I need to know what work I am doing.
That's your own evolution.
Yeah. So I said, let me see what are the areas where I can cut down, where are the areas where I can squeeze the time and bring. So by doing that, I should not lose my focus on the efficiency. So I need to understand how it is being done. So that's why I strategized in every stage that work first, then think about managing it, then think about leading it, and lastly, see how you can hit it. So when you are working, you should also play the role of a manager. When you are managing it, you should play the role of a leader. When you are at a leader role, you need to manage as a head of the unit.
It's a constant process.
It's a constant process.
Now, can you discuss any specific projects or achievements that you've considered or that you would consider to be or have been milestones in your
See,
in your
there
career?
was one project which I was doing. This was for a US bank, and we were actually migrating their entire process to India.
Okay.
So the challenge was that the people who are managing the process were 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. Whereas the team which is I'm going to manage is 0-day experience.
Wow. Okay.
So we were champion challengers. So if I have to challenge with them, I need to beat them. Okay, so it was a process. So what we did was, how do we train the people to beat the champions? So we know what the champions' mistakes are. So we started looking at bringing the understanding of the process, bring the understanding of how they need to perform, and ensure that we monitor their performance at every stage. When we did these three things, we were the champions than them.
What kind of qualifications did you require to get in, as opposed to what kind of qualification you think a fresher today would sort of require to start where you started?
The way I started, no, you need to have a minimum graduation.
Right.
Okay, when you get into a graduation, that's when the entry level of jobs are opening today. So once you get in, then you need to understand that what kind of skill set do you have. For example, somebody might have a operational skill set. Somebody will have a analytical skill set. Somebody will have a managerial skill set. So you need to understand what kind of skill set do you have. Once you understand the skill set, then when you enter into any institution, you look for whether your skill set is there. Is there a need there? If it is not there, then you start experimenting yourself with different organizations and move towards with your skill set also.
Right.
At the same time, ensure that you do the contribution to the organization where you're working. It's not that you go one day and then say, no, not here, next place. That it doesn't work.
But I'm sure that happens quite a lot.
It happens, and it has got its own repercussions. The reason is the person will never get to understand the complete knowledge of the business where he is entering into. So every business has got its own dimensions. So you will lose out. So I always recommend that you need to be in a place where you think that there is a learning experience which is there for you. People today think that anywhere you work there is no learning experience.
True.
They always look at the monetary value.
Yep.
And then say, okay, here my monetary is this
It's a
much.
very entitled attitude.
Yeah. So what happens is in the long run they miss out. If you do not focus onto that, no, you structure yourself like people graduate around 23, 24 or something. After that, what you want to do, you want to get into employment. When you get into employment, plan yourself that 5 years I will experiment myself with. The next 5 years, focus where you really want to go and gain more experience. Then you plan by saying, how do I grow with this experience and learning? Because that's when it becomes knowledge. So once you have the knowledge, then you can start aiming, let me now focus on earning.
Given your extensive experience in the banking industry spanning over 3 decades, now you've been in the banking industry for, like I said, now over 3 decades, and you've seen a lot of transitions. So if you had to dissect 3 basic things as far as the past, the present, and the future is concerned, on a few different aspects, as far as recruitments, as far as practices, what are your views on that?
See, recruitment is basically the entry level.
Right.
Okay, when you are in a particular industry, has got certain responsibility. Like every organization has got social responsibility, which you call, right? True. They have. So when you are working in for example, in a banking industry, okay, the primary thing which the recruiter should see is whether the guy has got the required basic knowledge which is required. Once you have that basic knowledge, and when you see the person has got the aptitude to work with, then look at how you will start empowering him with other knowledge, like for example an analytical course or an Excel course or coding course or whatever it is. So when you start empowering them and you start teaching them, then what happens is your workforce is more stronger than any other person, and they can do a versatile job.
True.
So that's how you need to, as a recruiter, which you should do. You identify the right people, understand what the industry for which you are recruiting, get the basics, understand that, and then start picking up the people.
So what do you think are the biggest challenges currently facing the banking industry, and how can they be addressed?
If you ask me today, there's a transition of banking which is happening. Okay, earlier we were doing manual, right? You write, you add, you balance it and all those things. Then there was an age when everything moved into a computer age.
Yeah.
So it was only a transition where we are like instead of writing, we are typewriting it into a computer.
Yeah.
But today it is not that. It has gone beyond that. Okay, where technology runs most of the operations. Technology runs most of the banking related requirements and everything. So today when you look at it, the transition which has been happening is happening in a very quick spell. Okay, in the last 30 years of my area, the last 3 years what I'm seeing is far faster than what I've seen in the last 27 years.
Right.
So it is quickly changing. Okay, so you need to be aware of the latest tools which are there. If you are not aware of it, then you will fall part of it because you don't know how to execute what you want. So in the current stage, it is important that you understand the new age tools, how it is being done, how it's being implemented, how it's being operated. All those things is required in the current world. Because today, for example, earlier when you process a loan, let's assume, it takes 1 month. Today when you process a loan, it takes less than 3 minutes. So how much of technology is there in that is one simple example.
Sure. Technology is going by leaps and bounds a little later on, but I'll insert it here now considering we're talking about technology. Artificial intelligence is sort of taking over and it's coming in different facets and technology is growing. Where do you see it going now?
Definitely it will go in leaps and bounds because if you look at many of the works which are being done manually or by a people or by anything, artificial intelligence will definitely take over.
But how does someone future-proof themselves? Because you've been here for 30 years now. For people that are starting off, will be starting off now, and there are processes that they will have to learn, that they'll have to acclimatize to in certain ways. Some of the things that may not be required that were required in your time, back then when you started. So how do you think one can equip themselves and keep themselves future-proof in this space? Is that possible?
It is possible as long as you keep educating yourself on what is available in the market.
Just bettering your knowledge.
You're bettering yourself. If you're not aware of what is happening around you, then you're lost out. For example, today ChatGPT is there. Today when you ask somebody to write a process note, they will think, they will meet, they will write. But today if you go to ChatGPT, so much of information is available.
You just type it out and
you just type it out, it gives you. Then you start validating it. Instead of verifying, looking into it, understanding and doing all those things, you get this and start validating it and implementing it. So it is so faster technologies which are available today.
How do you see the role of fraud management changing in the future?
See, earlier when I started my career, it was fraud detection, okay, which means in my view is fraud is something which has happened. Now you go and understand it and do a recovery. Okay, that is what fraud management is. But what we did is when I joined, it was like fraud management. So a fraud will happen, then they'll tell you, please go and investigate and find out what went wrong. Okay, so basically our objective was catch the culprit, do the recovery, and then forget it. But then that is not the end. So what we did is I started my career changing fraud management into fraud risk management, which means in anything and everything there is a risk which is attached to it. So it is important for somebody in a fraud risk management to understand what is the fraud risk which is going to be there. If it is going to be there, what strategy you need to adopt and how you
try and foresee
to
a certain extent.
To an extent, and then build a monitoring mechanism around it and then start doing it. That's the way which I looked at. But today when I look at it, even fraud risk management is outdated. So you need to have an integrated risk management approach, which means that there are various risks which you monitor: credit risk, operational risk, fraud risk, collections risk, everything is there. But if you look at everything into a silos, then you lose a lot of time into integrating it to understand what went wrong, how it went wrong, and where it went wrong. So integrated risk management approach will give you all the answers to it.
What advice would you give recent graduates who are looking to break into the banking industry?
First, get an entry, understand what the job which you are applying, do a kind of a research. For example, today when I look at it, if some offers are coming in, because I have an experience in banking, they immediately say you are a banking expert, you come. But I will tell them, let me first go through and understand what your requirements are. Once I understand the requirement, then I'll retrospectively see whether I can perform better or not, or what is the value addition which I bring. If I don't have those two answers, I will say, sorry, I am not the right person. So first is important is that you understand what is you expected. What you are expecting, is it also going to build you? If it is not going to build you, then don't get into it. and you need to know what skill set you actually possess.
Okay.
So when I was managing one of the institutions, we had around, as I said, we were doing the champion challenger thing. There were 300 people who were there whom I used to work with. The biggest challenge for them is that they were doing like, okay, they told me to check this, close it out. That's it. That's what they were doing it. But then it was like a routine operational exercise. But that is not fraud risk management exercise. So there is various levels which are available into it. So first you get in and understand what is the area which you are getting in, and look into your own skill set whether you can match that particular skill set or not. If you are saying yes, I will be able to match the skill set, look at whether that skill set will be required for the next 10 years. Don't look for 5 years, look for 10 years. If the 10 years is not there, then you are wasting your time.
True.
For example, when we were in 2000, everybody was running, all the engineers were worrying Y2K project, Y2K project. What happened after 2000? There is no Y2K project. So the entire thing is gone.
Yeah,
so
I
likewise, you need to look into what you are entering into, what you want to do for the next 10 years.
But staying aware, basically,
Yeah.
was the key. Can you share guidance on how to stand out in a competitive banking job market? And are there any courses that someone could take to help with that aspect?
So there are a lot of banking courses which are there, which they teach you about sales or operations or anything. But fundamentally, what I would say is that what are the tools which are available in the market? Are you aware of the tools?
Okay.
For example, if you all in the banking side, there are monitoring systems are available. Okay, many people will say one or two, but there are more than two. There are so many tools which are available. So you understand those tools first, and then you will decide which one to be deployed, what is to be done. So those are the kind of areas which you start learning. Learning is the most key. The reason why I'll say is risk predictable?
I'm guessing for you it is now at this point. That was a trick question. You tried to trick me there. But yeah, I'm guessing you can't.
You can't predict.
That's why it's a risk, right?
That's why
because
it's a
you
risk.
don't know.
At the same time, is it static? Risk is not static. It is dynamic, which means it keeps on changing.
Yeah, the possibility is like permutation combination.
It
just
keeps on changing.
Yeah.
So the person who is into risk, okay, should be able to understand this. So since it's dynamic, for example, today I just give you a very basic example. When you build your house, okay, initially, what we did, we used to put one latch and forget about everything, thinking that no fraudster will come and do it. Today, they have gone beyond that. Today, you put a security camera, then you put a sensor, then you put a street patrolling, you do so many things which you are doing it. In the same manner, okay, the risk is always dynamic. And don't look the risk as fraud risk, collection risk, credit risk, operational. No, risk is only one. And if you want to be a player in that, okay, you may get an entry in collections, you may get an entry into fraud, you may get entry into operations. But once you get in, based on your skill set, the avenue is open.
Right. What are the top 3 entry-level roles in banking that freshers should consider, and why?
Any role in banking you can do, okay.
But if you had to consider, this is the best place to start off because this is where you will learn the most, this is where you can sort of look at from here, these are the options, what would your suggestion be?
See, there are two things here. One is sales is one area,
Okay.
and one is operations is one area.
Okay.
Okay. In operations, you will talk about credit, risk, and everything, which I'm just putting it into one basket. So sales is a different art altogether. That how you will go and get a customer or product or whatever you want to create. So once you know that, okay, my appetite is not for sales, okay, my appetite is in operations, then there's a whole lot of things like product, developing a new product, then operationalizing the product, system implementation, so various things. Once you decide that, no, I don't want to be in sales, I want to be in operations, so start the career as any role in operations area, whether it is a credit or risk or a product development or technology, anywhere you start with it, based on the appetite which you have. And from there you start growing.
I want to ask you about how freshers can sort of equip themselves before they get in for an interview process. But before that, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about the banking industry or getting into the banking industry, both?
See, the misconception is today is people think it's more laborious kind of a job.
Yeah.
Because day by day what's happening is many of the intellectual stuff is getting automated. So you are left with more of a laborious jobs which are there. So they tend to lose focus onto that. In fact, when I started the career, I was also into operations, and it is basically day in and day out the same thing which I used to do it. But what kept me going for 3 years, which I did, and it is about processing more than 600 to 800 transactions. And before processing the 800 transaction, we have levels of authorizations which we need to do, which is more than 2000 or 2500 authorizations which we have to do, and to execute these 800 transactions. Jesus. So this is the same job which day in and day out is the same. But what is the new thing which you need to do is that we created our own quality standards into that.
Right.
That it should not fail at any given point in time. So it should not go up to the processing level and then fail. So we built various control mechanism and did the job in a different manner to ensure that we achieve the best. Okay. So you need to put your own creativity into the job and then make it as interesting as possible. Because today people don't make the job as interesting as possible. That's why you find less creative people in that particular area.
True.
If you are creative and if you are cautious about what you are doing, and if you always come to the organization for work, what is the new thing which I am going to learn today? If you have that principle in mind, then obviously you will not find as boring as that. So you will always find it interesting to come to the institution. Yes, it is at times it is cumbersome and boring and everything. That is something which is every job will have that kind of a thing.
Right. How do you make your resume stand out?
What you write is what they will ask, which means what is written in your resume is what they will ask. Okay, and in any interview will not last beyond 1 hour. So in that 1 hour, 15 minutes goes to your introduction. 15 minutes he will look into your resume and ask 1 or 2 questions. And the next 15 minutes is something which he will ask out of the question. So before he asks you out of the question, whatever you tell in this 15 minutes, the second 15 minutes, use technically what you think is right, which he will not know. And then he will ask you more about that particular thing. By the time you cross 45 minutes and 50 minutes, you have to give an impression that you are a capable person, not a qualified person.
Capable, not qualified. Got that. That is, yeah.
So once they are convinced that you are a capable person, then they will always extend an opportunity.
Some jobs are very physically demanding, some jobs are very psychologically demanding. This is, I'm guessing, one of those jobs that's very mentally stressful, because you always have to be on top of things, and it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of all of that. How do you manage to find a good balance between this and a home life?
So the way I do it is, I do take a lot of stress when I look at all the process and operations and everything. I like to understand the process first in any institution which I go. What is the end-to-end process? If you know the end-to-end process, if something goes wrong, you know where to find out and where to tell that this is where it should have gone wrong. Once you are clear with that, your thinking or the stress is low. If you do not understand the entire thing, at every stage when it comes in, you start from beginning to end to understand, then you are stressful. So the best way I used to adopt is first work. That's what I told you in the beginning. Work, then manage, then lead. So when you do this work, manage and lead, you work and you know what is done. Manage what are the kind of decisions which somebody has taken. When you lead it, you know this decision has led to this result.
Sure.
So once I know all that, then I know that if something goes wrong, it could be only this. So that's the way I started reducing the mental pressure. Otherwise, it's always high.
What salary expectations should someone entering the banking industry have, and how do these expectations change as you progress? Let's get down to money.
See, initially when you start, probably around today's inflation and cost of living and all put together, maybe around 15 to 20,000 rupees per month.
Okay.
But then how much you want, I cannot tell you, because it depends upon, I'm still happy with an Android phone, but others may be interested in an Apple phone. So when your wants are more, your money requirements.
But what's the best way to progress financially in the industry?
Today the needs are completely different. So if you have to meet to live with the needs, whatever is available, then you need to look at how you will evaluate your own value of experience and knowledge which you have. So I always say at least minimum contribute 5 years in an institution,
right,
and then evaluate yourself whether you're paid well as per the industry standards or as per what your experience is. Suppose if you find, no, I am not getting that, start looking out. Don't complain.
Don't complain. Yeah, that's something I tell my people as well. Before we go, if you can just give me one line, one piece of advice for people to sort of take away from this, or three pieces of advice, that would be great. For freshers to take away from this as to better planning, and how to approach a career like this, and what kind of mindset you have. If you could just sort of
It's
boil
a
it down to
combination
three
of
big points.
three things, yes.
Yeah.
So that, see, to me, today when I look at it, when they come in, they say, today I'm a worker, tomorrow I want to be a manager, day after tomorrow I want to be a leader, and then they say that they want to be the head of the unit. Fine, but within 4 days you will not get that experience which you want and the maturity which you want. So give the time and then plan accordingly.
Right.
Okay, choose the job and see what is the time which is required for you to learn. You cannot just simply say, no, I've joined today, tomorrow I want to become. Don't come with that kind of an aspirations.
Right.
The reason why is when you come with that aspirations, what will you do? You will not do your any creative thinking. What is available in the market, you just apply it and walk away. So your knowledge is lost. You're not applying your own knowledge. You're not gaining any experience. So you are basically giving what market is available. Then if that is the case, today you are a fresher at 20, then tomorrow there will be a fresher at 15. I will take him and go. I as a businessman, I am benefited. So don't always blame on the organization. Start thinking that what is that you can contribute to the institution, and also look at how much of experience I can gain from the institution which has given the opportunity. If you apply these two things, then you can always grow.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for taking time off, spending time with us.
Thank you.
We'll hope to see you again when times change, AI changes, and everything changes. But thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to another very interesting, very engaging episode on Past, Present, and Future, the Impacters podcast. For more such information and for more such engaging conversations, do follow us on all the social media platforms that's flashing on your screen right now. And up until then, stay informed.